In this video, we're going to look at IELTS process diagrams. Now, there can be two types of IELTS process. One of these is man-made. For example, you have this one with cement production and concrete production. This one is about the production of chocolate. And this one about the production of bricks. But we can also have natural processes. For example, this one showing the water cycle. This showing the life cycle of a frog. Or again, another diagram similar showing the water cycle. However, you can also get these mixed together as well. For example, there's this one about hydroelectric power generation, which has a natural cycle, but also has man-made cycles. But what we'll be looking at in this lesson is a man-made process. In this case, there are two diagrams. Look at cement production and concrete production. There are certain must-knows you should know when you write a man-made process. And firstly, this is that you need to use the passive voice. This is an active voice sentence, so this is actually wrong. The worker mixes sand into the water. This is a passive voice sentence, so it is the correct way. So we'll just quickly show you how to write a passive voice sentence in case you're not sure. What you do is you take the object of the active voice sentence and make it the subject of the passive voice sentence. And you take the verb and change that into a passive voice verb by adding the verb to be and making the verb the past participle. However, you should also note that sometimes we do use the verbs get and have to make a passive sentence as well. This is an active sentence. The pressure forces the mixture through the pump. And we can turn this into passive using the word get. The mixture gets forth through the pump. Heat is applied to the cylinder. That is an active sentence. We could also make that passive with has. So the cylinder has heat applied to it. Another must know is having complex sentences and structures in your writing. Of course, this is true for the IELTS essay or any kind of writing in IELTS. Just some examples here of the kind of complex structures you can put in. You can put in relative clauses. So the bricks are placed in an oven which heats them to 100 degrees. Adverbial clauses. Before the bricks are packed, they're heated for 48 to 72 hours. Or you can put in things like participle clauses if you want a particularly high band for grammar. Having been heated for 48 to 72 hours, the bricks are packed. For the structure of your IELTS process, it will follow the normal of what your normal structure for an IELTS Task 1 academic. The introduction, you will start by saying what it shows, the process shows, and drawing out the main features before you go on in your body paragraph to explain the different key features. And how many body paragraphs you have will just depend on your organisation. Now, with your organisation, with this particular one, as you've got one diagram here explaining cement production and another diagram explaining how this cement then goes into concrete production. So it makes sense to probably have two body paragraphs explaining each. So you've got two diagrams here. But you also want to think about how many stages of the process there actually are. You can see the first one here, the limestone and clay is crushed up, then it's mixed up, the powder is mixed up, then it's put through a heater, then it's ground into cement before being placed into the bags. The next diagram though, if we look at this, you can see really this is just one overall process because everything, the cement and another three substances are mixed together in the concrete mixer. Now the first thing you'll need to do is introduce the process, and as you can see you'll be given a prompt here telling you what to do. So the prompt will tell you what the diagram's about and will ask you to summarize the information. Now when you write the first sentence with what the process shows, you should paraphrase this first paragraph that you're given in the prompt. You can see here this has been paraphrased. You should never copy it. You must put it into your own language. So you can see here that various parts of that first section have been changed. So now we've written the introduction, the next thing is to write the overview. If you remember, we looked before, there were 5 stages in the production of cement, and then there's the concrete production. So in the overview, you need to make sure that you cover the main features and you cover everything. There are 2 diagrams here, cement production and concrete production, so you should mention both of these in your overview. So here we can see an example of an overview. So you've got your overall, just to tell the examiner, this just makes it clear that this is your overview. It mentions the 5 stages in cement production with a variety of equipment used in the process. And then with the concrete production, it mentions specifically that only a concrete mixer is used, as this is just one action happening. So we can see then we've got our full introduction here. So we've started with saying what the diagram shows, where we've paraphrased from the prompt. And then we have our overall statement or our overview, where we've picked out the main points of each diagram, because in this case there are 2 diagrams. Sometimes, of course, you may only have 1 diagram, but either way, you should pick out the main stages. So the next thing you need to do is write the body paragraphs. This is an example of the first body paragraph about cement production. And you can see that each stage, each of the 5 stages of the process has been written in turn. You'll see the passive voice has been used. Limestone and clay are crushed together to form a powder before passing into a mixer. The resulting mix of these elements then gets forced into a rotating cylinder device, which has heat applied to it through a flame at its base. Following this, the substance from the heater is ground up to produce a cement. This cement is then placed into bags. And you'll also note the use of sequences as well, to show how all these events happen in time order. The next body paragraph talks about the production of concrete. Again, you can see how the passive is used. This is produced cement, water, sand and gravel, which are spun together in a concrete mixer, and less cement and water are used at 15% and 10% respectively. We'll now look at the full response. So you can see that we have what the process shows first of all. Then we have our overview, and then we have each body paragraph describing the cement and the concrete, so it's logically organized. Of course, every process is different, so you need to decide the best way to organizing it, just depending on the different stages. And of course, we also have the passive voice and the sequences, which are key aspects for a process. And as noted, it's also important to think about your complex sentences and structures. So just to show you, there are various examples of how a variety of grammatical structures has been used in this process. An examiner will be looking for that. These are just some examples. For example, here we have an adverbial clause. Here we have a prepositional phrase. Here we have a reduced adverbial clause. We have nominalization. And we have a relative clause. There are other examples as well, but it's very important that you're putting in complex sentences and structures as accurate as you can make them if you want to be trying to get a higher band score. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and please check out some of the links to some of our other materials on the IELTS Buddy website.